Hey, hey, hey. What's the buzz? Tell me what's a-happening. This is Pyromaniac Mo and Staggs coming at you for the first episode of the Pyro Light podcast. It's June 24th, 2015, in my man Stag Party on the other side of the pond. How are things going in Chicago?
Oh, not bad, not bad. We're got some nice weather here. A couple nice days together for once. Uh, I think it rained all last week, and then they told me we were gonna start doing this podcast. I kind of talked to them about it a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna call it Pyro Heavy," and I'm like, "No, we're not. Like, me and Mo aren't that heavy, man. I've seen you like drink 27 IPAs, and you're gonna call me heavy? This is Pyro Light, baby." We've got a whole new spin on things. We're going to keep it nice and easy. The plan is, during the season, we're going to do this on Fridays. We do our regular podcast during the season Tuesday nights, so you don't really get any of the early injury update kind of action or anything like that. So this is going to be more of that end-of-the-week updates, how things have moved in player rankings and things along those lines. And a bunch of different things. Injury updates, swings in player rankings, gaining and losing jobs. I assume there'll be some, streamers of the week in there, because I think we're all kind of big on that, with maybe QB, tight end, defense, and kicker. The 2 week too early pickup, a guy you'll want in a couple weeks, you should probably pick up. Kind of daily lineup sort of things, values, where they wouldn't be values, guys we're liking, guys we're not liking, some bold predictions. And I think we're going to do the Pyro Power Ranking Lock of the Week, sort of survivor pool, kind of thing, where we give you the numbers off what the Pyro Power Rankings thinks, because they usually do pretty well in, predicting, games.
Yeah, the boys are still going to be doing it. You and the boys will still be doing it 50 weeks a year. And we're going to play around with it this summer, try to develop some set segments, and then, like you say, every Friday, come up with the most up-to-date material, let people know, like you said, some injuries and news and notes going into the weekend. And that's why I kind of like the summer. We've got to develop some of those set segments. We're going to do a rookie spotlight, investigate some players, like you say, ADP risers and fallers. So it's going to be exciting. A little bit more set as far as the podcast goes than the regular. But yeah, like you say, it's Pyro Light. But I look at it as we are bringing fantasy football light to the world. So without further ado, my friend, let's do some Huey Lewis in the news and notes. Philadelphia Eagles, Jordan Matthews. Now, there was early speculation that Aguilar would play in the slot, but it appears that Jordan Matthews is going to retain that role. Did you know no other player was in the slot more last year than Matthews? 92.4%. On June 18th, CSN Philly noted that Matthews has still been lining up in the slot in most three wide receiver sets. I'm not sure which cat for Philly is going to go off, but I would guarantee one of those guys is going to be a wide receiver number one this year.
I'm tempering my expectations a little bit on the one talk, but yeah, a very high two. I like him in the 15 to 17 range for Jordan Matthews. One of the reasons Chip Kelly likes guys to play in the slot who are bigger is because they can block the zone read better, and they can get out and cut out and take out linebackers. So he likes having a bigger slot player for his blocking aptitude, actually. So that's one of the reasons they expect Aguilar to play on the outside a little bit more. Use his kind of speed and quickness. He's very good at running the 9 route, and he's very good at beating defenders deep. So I think it's going to be an interesting blend. I think both will be very good plays. I don't know if they're going to get up to the true, top 10 to 12 numbers like Macklin did last season and like Deshaun did the season before that. But I think both could be. I think Jordan Matthews is a solid 2, and I think Aguilar is a solid 3. I think it's going to be a little bit more balanced. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think the NFC East in general is going to be a lot of fun to watch with all the kind of offensive firepower that kind of got going on in that division this season.
Yeah, Chip Kelly especially. And I'm going to spotlight Aguilar because I'm really high on him coming up in a bit. But Chip Kelly, I'm just excited to see if he is the genius that many people think he is, or if he's going to kind of fall on his face because there's no one to blame but him. He's the one pulling the strings. Another guy that I'm high on, Zach Ertz. Um, Jimmy Kemsky from the Philly Voice said he's been the most impressive Eagle at camp so far and should garner big-time numbers this season. He and Bradford, I've seen from several beat writers, have been developing a real chemistry, which is huge. Ertz last year finished as the number 14 tight end for total points, but he could be sitting on a breakout season. If you just look last year, week 16, he had 18 targets, 15 receptions, 115 yards. And that was his highest total all year by far, and he still finished as number 14. I think he's sitting on a breakout year this year with Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I absolutely kind of agree with you. Here's a couple things. That 15 receptions is like a Philly franchise record, so no receiver has even had, as good a number as 15 receptions in a game. I think 18 targets is also a Philly franchise record, and they made a concerted effort to get him the ball. They'll definitely be doing that again. From what I hear, him and Tony G were hanging out, talking over some food, getting a little, getting some advice from the greatest ever play the position. So you can't go wrong in doing that if you're Ertz. He's also been working on his blocking to stay on the field a little bit more. Can't complain, doing all the things right. He's a big guy, he's a fast guy, and he's in an elite offense. So, I think I just pushed him up to tight end number 5 in my rankings, well ahead of Martellus Bennett now at this point for me. Bennett's just the guy I'm not going to target, and definitely ahead of that Julius Thomas cat who chased the money.
Well, yeah, I also read that he went out to dinner with Gonzalez, and I don't know how much wisdom one man can pass along to another man over some chimichangas, but it is Tony Gonzalez, whatever. But yeah, working on his blocking, I think that's huge because Selleck, just because I think of Brent Selleck's blocking, really limited Ertz's time on the field, and if he can capitalize on his blocking, he's going to be on the field more, which is good for fantasy and good for Ertz owners. Coming at you from the Phillies still, we've got Josh Huff. He's really been struggling. Huff is currently listed as 5th on the depth chart, but gosh, even number 6, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it right, but Seyi Ejirotutu is pushing him from that spot. I've seen several beat writers complaining about Josh Huff. Although it's doubtful Cooper is really going to retain the number 3 spot, Josh Huff, who many people were really high on, has not been getting good press. So he might just be one to watch going forward.
Yeah, he's starting to tumble out of my rankings a little bit. Getting close to being completely out. Seiji Iratutu is, a special
man.
teamer. He's going to be on the field. I mean, just because he's a special teamer, he's probably going to make the team. And that's sort of going to leave Cooper on the outside by default. I think Jordan Matthews will stay, in the slot, and Aguilar's, everything Huff's doing is just making Aguilar's job even easier to get on the field early, especially as a return man, which he can do. So the question is Huff even going to retain any value as a special team returner?
Yeah, and that's where you got to know your league, right? Some leagues, you're going to find value in that if you get points for return touchdowns, return yards, but that could really save him as his special teams contribution. Another guy from Philly, Darren Sproles. Chip Kelly, realizing I think he's got a crowded backfield, has been looking to utilize Sproles as many ways as possible, and he's actually been lining up as a receiver in some of the OTAs. His current ADP is 50th. He's the 50th running back off the board in standard and 44th in PPR. His ADP has taken a hit in the last month. Both formats really falling a full round, basically. So if indeed Kelly can incorporate him in the passing game and get him lined up, I think that's great. Sproles is on my radar, at least for PPR formats, not so much in standard. Another Philly bit of news, which is going to impact the running game. Evan Mathis was released. He wanted the money. I guess they weren't willing to pay him. He was released by the Eagles. I think this is a huge impact on the running game. Pro Football Focus rated him the second best offensive guard last year. So their run game has got to take a hit because of that. Now, I don't know if I'm going to knock anyone down my charts just because of it, but I'm going to definitely watch the offensive line during preseason. They were really nicked up a lot last year, and I think losing Mathis could be a big hit. Moving elsewhere, the Cowboys, Ryan Williams. Now, this dude, he's missed some time already due to swelling in the knee, and he's likely on the bubble. Jerry Jones, he's gone on record as saying that he's pretty comfortable spreading the ball between three guys. Of course, that's Randall, McFadden, and Dunbar. He went on to say that he's cool opening the season with a three running back backfield on his 53-man roster. You know, Williams, of course, he got a lot of press. He was a great running back from Vatech coming out. Tore his patella tendon in the preseason of his rookie year, 2011, and the dude has just never been the same. I remember him. He was redshirted in Vatech. His first year had like 1,500 yards. It was just amazing. That patella tendon, this is the same thing that dinged up Victor Cruz, and I started doing some research. Patella tendon, if you rupture your patella, it has to be repaired arthroscopically, so it requires a massive open procedure, and these surgeries have really painful, lengthy rehabs. And the deal is, for 6 weeks after the surgery, the joint has to be immobilized, like in a cast, so that it can heal. And the bad part about this is the surrounding muscles are unused, and they start to suffer atrophy, and they start to degrade. So not only are you rebuilding the tendon, but all the muscles around it, and mechanics must be retrained, cutting must be retrained, muscle memory. It's like 6 months before you can even attempt to run again, and make cuts, and to juke. Cruz, which I'm kind of jumping around here, but you've seen how it's affected Ryan Williams. He's never been the same. Victor Cruz.
I don't think he's even played the snap.
No, he had a preseason. I believe you're right. He goes from like his 2011, 2012. I guess it was 2011 is when he got injured, and yeah, never played a regular season snap. I believe you're right. Cruz, and he was fantastic in college. Suffered his injury October 12th of last year. So we're talking 6 months before the dude was even allowed to run. It's not going to be good. So I kept fascinated by this. But since 1994 to 2004, there were 24 patellar tendon injuries in the NFL. Of those, all but one came back to play, but you can't really compare how they were post-injury to pre-injury. So everyone came back, everyone except one, but almost all of them seemed to lose explosiveness. Here are some names for you. Maurice Claiborne, Cowboys. He was the 6th pick in 2012. Now, he had a decent campaign, but there's a lot of other talk about why he was perhaps not as good as he should have been. Scandrick outplayed him, but he might not even make the team. Cadillac Williams, rookie 2005, had 6 games over 100 yards, including his first 3. Tore his patella tendon in 2007, never the same. Carell Buckhalter, he was another big one. It just seems like nobody has really been able to rebound. So while you can pretty much write off Ryan Williams, I'm kind of concerned for Victor Cruz, which maybe could be a good thing for Ruben Randall and some of the other giant receivers. The
preseason star Corey Washington? Is that who you're going to try to talk up, Mo? I mean, let's be realistic
I was looking at
here.
some other guys.
Let's be realistic here. It's helping Ruben Randall, and Ruben Randall is.
I've got Victor Cruz on my Dynasty League, and I'm not too happy with it. And I'm not even so sure how happy I am with Ruben Randall. Everyone always talks him up, but I've never seen him really produce. But he's certainly going to have an opportunity.
Check out
now.
his last 2 games of the season.
He's going to have the opportunity now.
Yeah, he produced the last 2 games of the season.
How did he do his last 2 games of the season?
Like 300 yards combined over the last 2. I think he had 162 in one and 138 in the other, something like that. And very well, very well.
I was on him last year when he was getting all those targets. He just never seemed to really turn it into anything, but he's going to have a hell of an opportunity. Certainly ODB, obviously, but I'm not too bullish on Victor Cruz.
Can we talk about somebody I am bullish on? We talk about Des
how you feel
Bryant.
about Des Bryant?
I feel pretty good about Des Bryant, even though he's sitting there and he's posturing and he's talking about, hey, I'm not going to play the first game of the year if they don't give me this new deal. He still showed up to the last day of OTAs, although he didn't really practice. He just kind of sat there, hung out with Terrence Williams on the sideline before he suffered a little injury scare himself. And then he went out and he shot some highlight tapes and he shot some pictures for NBC and Sunday Night Football, pushing that sort of agenda. So you got to think he's going to be back. But then the team's talking about him and, Stephen Jones are talking how they're further away than they've ever been. But the real question about Des Bryant, whatever happened to that Walmart parking lot video? Like, how much did he have to pay to get that thing, gone? Because he obviously needs a new contract to, re-up his bank accounts after that thing. He must have spent a lot of coin to get that thing buried.
Staggs, you were doing some investigative reporting, and we're learning a lot about you tonight, and you're bilingual. What was the sixth wide receiver name in Philly? A tutu?
Seiji Uratutu.
Did you just swear at me? Did you swear at me in Swahili? Come on, be honest.
I think I did.
Yeah.
The real story coming out of Dallas probably is the running back situation. That's the one that everybody cares about, right? And Joseph Randle's going to enter training camp as the starter. But then today I was just reading around and let's check out some Joseph Randle news. It's like every day there seems to be something different. Like it's his job to lose, or they're going to spread the touches around through everybody. It's like great. They're going to give it to Dunbar and McFadden. It's going to be split, and he's going to be their 1A. Blah blah blah. But then I read somewhere today. One of the other fantasy analysts went out there and said he would have no problem spending a first-round pick on Joseph Randle. And I almost, crap myself. What do you think about that, Mo?
That's pretty damn high. Now, I was going to bring up some stuff about Dez, but Joseph Randle, I think he's leading the pack, but first round, I've got him 25, 24, 23 right now. My running back 23, tier 7.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that. Right around, running back anywhere after 20, I'm okay. Especially if he's a part of a committee, I understand the appeal. 22% of his touches last season went for 10 or more yards, which is just crazy. But the one stat that really stood out for me is 214 of his 344 yards came after contact. And you got to just think about this offensive line getting the most yards before contact, and then,
Yeah. He's in a fantastic situation. Fantastic situation. With the line he's got now, do you really think Randall's going to win the job outright, or do you think it's going to be more of a split carry situation?
I think it's going to be a split carry situation, but that offensive line is so good that I think he's going to be the top guy getting 15 to 18 touches. I see Dunbar getting 3 to 5, mostly on third down. And I see, Darren McFadden in sort of a spell role of, maybe 10, 12 touches. The real question is who's going to get the goal line work.
Yep.
Because I feel like that's going to be the biggest differentiator of all these guys. I think Randall will end up the season with the most touches, but who's going to get the goal line work? That's the biggest question I have. It's not going to be Dunbar. So is it going to be Randall? Is it going to be McFadden? McFadden's bigger, but 3.9 yards a carry. You get a little nervous. So I have some reservations, but that's why he's not ranked in the top 20 for me. If I had no reservations, I think he'd be easily, top 15.
Right. So let me ask you this. You're comfortable with him. I think I had him, 23, 24. You're comfortable mid-20s. I've got Dez number 2. Where do you have Dez?
I moved him down a spot to number 3,
Okay.
just because the threat of sitting out a game and, pissing me off right now. That's the only information I have to go on. I can easily, Des Bryant's Des Bryant. I have no concerns about him when he gets on the field. It's only when he's off the field that I have concerns. The man is a monster, capable of catching 2 touchdown games, 3 touchdown games, 100-yard games easy, 150-yard games. You can see him throw up 10 catches. You can see him throw up 15 catches. You can see him outmuscle 3 defensive backs. You can see him, outmuscle 1. You can see him stomp over a safety on his way to the end zone. Dez Bryant might be, if I had to start my team at wide receiver in the back half of the draft, he's one guy I really want. I don't know if I can bring myself to draft Antonio Brown over Dez Bryant just because of the appeal he has.
And the strength of schedule for Pittsburgh is bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Brown is strength of schedule proof, though. He's matchup proof. He proved it last year when he didn't have a single game with under 54 yards receiving. There's nothing that concerns me about Antonio Brown. The only thing that concerns me is, he's not the biggest. And, when you're looking for a prototypical number 1 wide receiver, like Dez Bryant has, if he wore wide receiver 1 on his back, I would have no complaints if that were his football number.
With Dez, I got into a bit of a back and forth on Twitter with Mike Clay, who was very down on Dez, and I
wouldn't say he was down on Dez.
Well, he's saying that basically he was saying career year beware, that he's in for a touchdown regression, and I did give him that thanks to our touchdown dependency chart, which you can get as part of the $20 draft kit, which in my book is one of the best tabs we have for recognizing trends and looking for guys you might want to stay away from or guys you want to go towards, identifying those guys who are far too touchdown dependent. Now, Dez Bryant, out of the top 5 guys who are the most touchdown dependent, this is the only one I'm not really worried. Now, 1% of his fantasy points came from touchdowns, but I'm not too worried about it. I started doing some research on him. His touchdowns have risen every single year he's in the league. So you could have said he was touchdown dependent in 13. Where was his regret when he had 13 touchdowns 2 years ago? Well, did he regress? No, he added 3 more. He had 16. So touchdowns have risen every year. He's gone for 1,000 yards in each of the last 3 seasons. Led the Cowboys in targets each of the last 2. Led him in touchdowns each of the last 3. With the departure of Murray and his 13 TDs, Cowboys are going to be looking for Bryant to pick up the slack. He's got 8 targets inside the opposing 5-yard line, second most in the league, scored on 5 of those occasions. What you got?
I mean, the thing is, no player who's ever caught 16 touchdowns in a season has done it again. So, history says it's not going to happen again. Do I see a major fall-off to where he falls up below 10 touchdowns? No chance. But do I see him being in the 12 to 13 range pretty comfortably? Yeah. I think this offense is probably going to spread it around a little bit more. The touchdowns will probably just go around. Witten was very low in touchdowns last year, and I think he's due for a little bit of a bump again this year. So other guys are going to get it. I think Cole Beasley will be more involved. Terrence Williams, I don't think he can be more involved in the touchdown department with the 8 he had last season. But I just think they're going to spread it around. They've always kind of involved those second-tier tight ends, pilfering touchdowns in the James Hannas and the Gavin Escobars of the world, and then they'll spread it out between those 3 running backs. There was a point last season where, as a Murray owner, when I was pissed after week 8, they just did not seem – they rode him all the way down the field, but they did not give him red zone carries. And all of a sudden that changed later in the season, and they gave him, 58 total? So, you just got to Bryant, but expecting 16-plus again is defying history.
The biggest thing I saw, I love the fact he was second most in targets inside the 5, and the fact that DeMarco Murray is leaving a 13-touchdown void. I, too, think they're going to spread it around. I don't think Cole Beasley, with his size and weight, is going to be much of a red zone look. But 13 touchdowns to make up for Murray is a lot. And I think Dez is going to be Tony's go-to recipient for that. Moving on up. As the Jeffersons would say, moving on up. Going to the Bills. E.J. Manuel surprise, 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 looks as though he is pulled ahead in the three-man quarterback race in Buffalo. Rex Ryan praised his work, particularly noting a touchdown pass and his work in the 2-minute drill. Rex has made it known in the past that he likes Tyrod Taylor, but lately he's been all about Manuel. Originally the safe money I thought was on Castle, but Vic Karukas from the Buffalo News said Castle has easily been the worst-looking quarterback in camp. He goes on to say that, quote, Castle doesn't move well, doesn't always throw the prettiest ball, and has easily had the worst-looking practice performances of all the quarterbacks. The fact that the staff is, pumping up Manuel, I don't know, it could be nothing more than them trying to boost the second-year player's ego, but I don't know. He could be one to watch in camp coming up.
Entering your third year as the highest, quarterback picked in that draft, yeah, they're going to stroke you off. They're going to stroke you off long and hard. Eventually, Castle, he's never been a practice player. Nobody ever liked having Matt Castle on their team as their, backup quarterback until he gets in the game and, takes the Patriots to 10 wins. He never looks good. I don't think he's looked good since high school. I mean, didn't play at USC, didn't play for the Patriots all those years, played, good for the Patriots for that 1 year and got himself, a nice little deal. Went to Kansas City, played decent for a year, and then went downhill from there. Played decently to start last season. I mean, his numbers weren't out of this world, but they were looking good, and he was the exact kind of veteran presence that they were looking for at the time. I think it's just going to come down to what they're looking for at the quarterback position and whether they think they can give up on E.J. Manuel or if they're just going to hand him the reins a little bit, just reluctantly because, hey, we spent this, you were the first quarterback drafted. Prove us right, please. And the only way you can do that is on the game field.
And whoever takes over the reins, it's going to be a run-heavy attack with Greg Roman's offense, which brings us to Fred Jackson. Now, there's been talk about the possibility of him not making the roster. He has even commented on it. Now, chances are this is just the kind of stuff you hear from camp, but the dude, Fred Jackson, is 34 years old. McCoy is certainly the main man there. Carlos Williams, though, he's impressed. He's had a good showing in camp. And Anthony Dixon, who, he was on my waiver wire pickup at one point last year, never really showed much. He's pretty entrenched in special teams, so Fred Jackson is not. So Fred Jackson might possibly find himself suiting up somewhere else. Hint, hint, Dallas or New England. They might come calling.
Yeah, it's New England. Like, by far, if Fred Jackson's leaving, he's going to New England, and he'll be the third down back, and he'll somehow catch 80 passes and be a value yet again, and that's just Fred Jackson for you.
Sticking with the ground game in Tennessee, they cut Sean Green. Now, although rookie running back David Cobb has been slowed by a sore hamstring, ESPN's Paul Kuharsky says that he's the goal line back for sure, and he's going to get the short yardage work. Cobb should be the favorite for the early down work as well. If you remember, Sankey just averaged 3.7 yards a carry last year, and his footwork was always an issue. Out of 152 carries in his rookie season, Sankey only had one that went for at least 20 yards. In fact, in the last 10 games last season, he was afforded at least 9 carries. He only averaged better than 4 yards per carry 2 times. So I think the release of Green certainly helps Cobb more than it does Sankey.
I've got to sort of agree with you there. I mean, I'm just not sure anything in the world like a hamstring injury can slow David Cobb down, because that guy's already slower than Sean Green ever was. I mean, dude is slow, but yeah, he could probably average 3.7 yards a carry too, and he'll probably do most of it after contact because he's slow. The man is slow, so they're going to need to get Bishop Sankey the ball. The question is, I think it's just going to end up being like a 50-50 split. I think Bishop Sankey is going to get 12 carries, and David Cobb's going to get 12 carries, and they're going to cancel each other out. They're not going to be anybody that you want on your redraft team. But if you got to choose one today, I take the lower drafted one, of course. That bet on the other side of the committee, but on the lower drafted side of the committee in your draft, pick up the one who's drafted second, and he'll probably perform better than the starter. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, if Sankey's ADP continues to fall, he might, I'm going to say might, with a small m, might be a draft day value. But boy, I'm a little scared to do it. But if Cobb does the job, I think it's going to be later in the season, and Sankey could very well be a starting running back in the NFL, and that could have some draft day value if he's falling as he's continued to do with his ADP.
Yeah, here's the thing. Sankey is going back to running from the shotgun if everything they say about this Marcus Mariota, a little bit of spread offense is coming back.
Like Russell Wilson, they say.
If all those things, sort of come back and he's running from the shotgun and, he's better running from the shotgun. It's just what he was effective at in college, so let's see him be effective in something he was effective at before writing him off completely.
Give me some news from Carolina. What's going on over there?
Oh, apparently, Cam Newton got paid. That's about all I heard. That's all I heard. That's about all I heard. But the thing that's exciting for fantasy owners, and the reason I just pushed him up to number 4 in my quarterback rankings, is they are just gonna wait. I can't let this thoroughbred. I can't take the leash off him. I can't tame the thoroughbred. I can't not let loose the thoroughbred. You can't hold back a thoroughbred. Whatever you want to call it, you just got to unleash the guy. You just got to let him run. And they know that. That's the way that they're going to be best offensively. And here's the things. Big receivers might have a case of the dropsies, but when they get their hands on these little cornerbacks, they flatten them. And, it's going to be great for Cam Newton. With the size of this offense as a whole, this guy, has a chance to approach those double-digit touchdowns on the ground again. So I'm loving Cam Newton. I think they're just going to unleash him, and there's no way you cannot. And I'd also like to give props to Cam Newton because he was just a great guy this week, and he went out and visited the families of the shooting victims in Charleston. And kind of hung out with them and sent his condolences in person. And I felt like that was a great thing to do. And just prove that he's a franchise type guy for the area.
I like Cam, but his ADP right now, he's the 7th quarterback off the board, but he's going mid-6th round. He's tumbled a little bit this month. He's going mid-6th round, but you can get guys after him. Matt Ryan, Brady, Tannehill, Eli Manning. I just don't think his ADP is worth it for me.
I mean, he's a guy who can exceed his quarterback position. The other guys who are sort of being drafted ahead of him, let's see, Russell Wilson, I don't think he can finish above number 3. We'll talk about that a little later. Peyton Manning, I don't think he can finish above number 3. Drew Brees, I don't think he's got a chance to finish above number 3 this season. Who else is ahead of him right now? Matt Ryan probably is the last guy. He's never done it before. Cam Newton's done it before, and if they're going to let the man run, then let him run. And if he comes to me in the 6th or 7th rounds, and I don't like anybody else there, I feel very good drafting a Cam Newton. And if there's times, like when we draft and we do our mock drafts and we do our live drafts, because I know you're all waiting on quarterbacks and I can get Cam Newton in the 8th, then it's just like, thank you, I will take this. There's no complaints here on my side. He's a guy who could finish top 2 at the position. I don't think anybody else has that upside. That's about it.
See, Cam Newton, I think he finished 17th last year, and he wouldn't have even done it if not for Week 6 and Week 14. There was only 3 total games where he put up more than 20 fantasy points.
You mean the games they let him run?
He was, as he's getting older, he's running less and less and less, and you see that with all running quarterbacks. It ain't what it used to be. The old gray mare ain't what she used to be.
I think it was just because he was injured. Let's see, he had a rib injury. He was coming off ankle surgery. I think he flipped his car in the middle of the season and stopped running. So all those things, sort of combined to not. Cam is superhuman for the position. And
you can't tell me he is going to make up for it as a running quarterback and then also discount his injuries. A lot of his injuries may come because he is a running quarterback. So if you are taking that running quarterback, you got to take the injuries with it.
Yeah, but he's not coming off an injury this offseason. He was coming off an injury last offseason, so we discounted him. And he still played fairly enough. And then when they let him run, he put up great numbers last season. The two performances in which he ran the most were the times he had the best year. And that's just kind of the way it is. And he only played 14 games last season, averaged 17.6 fantasy points a game, which would have finished, top 8? In terms of points per game. So you gotta
he
like
finished
him a little
17th. Finished 17th overall, and then points per game, top 8. You're right. God, you're like Rain Man.
Yeah, I've got a couple talents here and there, and one of them is knowing that Cam Newton, with the reins off, is going to be amazing. And if you don't like waiting for a quarterback, like some of us do, then Cam Newton's a great target. He could finish, top 3 at the position. I think he's got a clear chance to do that above some of these other guys who are being drafted ahead of him, like the Russell Wilson types.
Another guy on everyone's lips these days, Saints tight end Josh Hill. What do you think of him?
I like Josh Hill. They're just throwing straight shade at Josh Hill right now. He's only going to be a sub-package player, and he can't block anybody, so Ben Watson's going to be on the field a lot. Ben Watson's been catching all the passes in training camp, all that good stuff. And he's only going to play sub-package offense, and this is all from Mike Triplett, ESPN, Saints reporter. And then just remember earlier in the offseason when Sean Payton was praising the man, saying, we're perfectly comfortable with Josh Hill. Oh, you want to talk about Ben Watson? No, I'd rather talk about Josh Hill, because this guy is an athletic specimen that even if he's playing – here's the thing about sub-packages and tight ends. Pretty much all of them play in sub-packages. Let's see. The guys who don't are the Jason Witten types who never leave the field, the Heath Millers, those old kind of guys who catch 65 passes and end up with 750 yards and 5 touchdowns. But the guys who played in sub-packages last year, who they move around a little bit, the Travis Kelce's, the Zach Ertz's of the world, because Ertz played less than 60% of the snaps last season. So, sub-package player. And last time I checked, the Saints use a lot of sub-packages, and they try to get their ball to their playmakers in space. So, yeah, keep telling me he's a sub-package player. Keep telling me you're driving his price down. Keep telling me all that. I'm still going to keep him ranked in my top 10. And he's one of my great tight end targets late in the draft if I don't keep Kelce in the 5th.
Excellent work. Just to do a quick Pyro promo here, I was tweeting out some stuff recently, and I tweeted out Mike Wallace that he had 9 red zone TDs last season, and that is 1 less than his 5 seasons combined. I got that fact from the red zone table that we're going to be putting in with Pyro Pro. With Pyro Pro, you're going to get all kinds of great stuff coming out in July, but the red zone table is one of them, and it is fantastic. Just for the quarterbacks alone, there are 15 categories, 15 columns that you can look all with red zone numbers, and we do that for running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's going to be fantastic, so keep your eyes peeled for Pyro Pro coming out in July. So a couple bullet. Go for it.
Let me get in here. Who are you, D-Rex? I mean, great Pyro promo. I think his own, what was D-Rex's advice? Keep it tasteful. And I'm like, Wait, dude, I've got the most taste of anybody I know. I wear socks and sandals.
Ooh, are they black socks too? Because
Ooh,
you know,
no, never black socks.
tucked in T-shirt that looks styling. Um, yeah, I did like the D-Rex keep it classy. Thanks to that, man, I now know what dogs in the tub are. Uh, bold predictions. Sit back for this one. Now, everyone likes to do bold predictions, but this one, I'm just going to say I think Jamal Charles could possibly finish outside the top 5. He turns 29 in December, and as we know, 29 is the new 30. A lot of times guys are hitting the wall at about 29. He's got over 1,500 regular career touches. That's a little over 1,200 carries, a little over 262 catches. Last season, though, with his catches, he had the 6th highest drop rate, 13.4%. In 2014, he was 28 then, he's 29 now, or he'll turn 29 in December. 2014, he injured his ankle, his foot, his back, his shoulder, his knee, his hamstring. And if you're looking for trends, Andy Reid's first year, which was 2013, from his first year to his next year, 2014, Jamal Charles had 62 less passing plays that he was in on, 62 less passing snaps. From Andy Reid's first year to his next year, he was targeted 45 times less. Going back even further, from 2012 to 2014, he's had 79 carries. Went from 285, 259, 206. Yards from 2012 to 2014, 476 less. Yards per carry, he's 2012, 5.3, 2014, 5.0. And look at this one, 100-yard rushing games. 2012, 7. 2013, 4. Last year, uno. So if you're looking at his trend, if you're looking at a bar graph, right, everything is shrinking, everything is going down. The amount of snaps he's in, the targets, the carries, the yards per carry, 100-yard games, everything is going down. Now, besides his rookie year and his injured season, last year was his lowest in yards per carry and total rushing yards. There's this dude, Chase Stewart. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's at footballperspective.com. He does some really cool stuff. And Chase Stewart figured out that roughly about 4.13 yards per carry is the average for the all running backs who had at least 100 yards. That's the average all running backs who had 100 carries. 4.13. If you took off Jamal Charles's 5 best runs, he's below that. So there's really just a couple things that notched him up, just a couple of runs that notched him up, that without those, he's not there. He's not a free agent until 2018, and I kind of think that KC is going to try to elongate his career a bit like 49ers did for a while with Gore, limiting his carries. They've got Niall Davis. He's not a free agent until 2017. Why not go with the tandem? All of this leads me to believe he's going to go outside the top 5 running backs. I'm getting in my Karate Kid crane pose. What you got for me?
I'm coming for you, son.
Wax on, wax off, bitch.
If we take out anybody's top 5 carries, I hate everybody who does that. Let me take out your 5 best test scores during the season, and let me know what your test scores are then, and all those kind of stuff. I dislike that statistical analysis. It doesn't really work for me. Nobody ever does it across the board. They just take it out for guys they think are statistical anomalies, and Jamal Charles isn't a statistical anomaly. Football Perspective also put out today on Twitter that Jamal Charles, for yards adjusted, yards per carry versus the generation, is historically one of the best running backs ever. Basically because he's never averaged less than 5 yards a carry. He averaged 5.1 last season. Does Jamal Charles' yards per carry scare me at all? No, 5.1 last season. Scored
5.0.
14 touchdowns. Yeah, do the math, buddy. Do the math. Round up from 5.099. So 14 touchdowns last season, 19 the season before that. Andy Reid has revived this guy's career because he gives it to him in the red zone, which nobody else would do before. So, do I think he's going to be the 285 carry guy of 2012? No. Do I think he's going to get back to 240, 250 type of carries? Yes. Do I think he's going to average 5 yards a carry? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to catch more passes next season? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to average Justin Forsett 7.3 yards per catch? No chance. All these things make me to believe that Jamaal Charles is going to finish inside the top 5. And the real bold prediction is he finished 7th last year, so it's not that bold. Come on now, Mo. What else you got for me?
Okay, my next one I think is a little bit stronger, but I will say to refute you, one, I'm not drafting Jamaal Charles on his career. I'm with footballperspective.com. He is one of the best running backs, but I'd rather be the first guy off the train before it crashes than the last guy hanging on. Just saying. All right, how about this one?
What's 4.8 yards per carry? That's a big crash.
Well, I'm not saying he's going to have 4.8, but now I will come at you with this. You did say Reid revived his career. If so, how come from Reid's first year to his second, Jamaal Charles has suffered statistically in the amount of passing snaps he's been in, the amount of targets, amount of carries, amount of yards, yards per carry, and 100-yard rushing games? All of those have gone down from Andy Reid's first year to the next year. Just saying. Here's one for you. Here's one for you, because I might have got a little muddled there, or perhaps you did, but here's one for you. You're a Chicago boy, and I like Jamaal. I'm not as strong as I feel on the top 5. Yeah, I've got him rated 7th, whatever. I'm saying he's out of the top 5. But Matt Forte, I'm pretty confident Matt Forte is finishing
out. I think you need to repeat that. You kind of cut out, bro.
I'm saying that Matt Forte is going to finish outside the top 10. Matt Forte is going to finish outside the top 10. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So, everyone knows he had a career year under Mark Trestman, who is now in Baltimore. He received 130 targets last year. Now, BT, before Trestman, the most targets he received in a season was 76. 808 yards receiving under Trestman last year. BT, before Trestman, the most, he only went over for 500 yards receiving once in his career. The year before Trestman arrived, he averaged 11.8 fantasy points per game. Trestman's first year bumped up to 16.3. Now, Fox has already hinted at a reduction in Forte's numbers. He said, quote, "We've always been believers in kind of a 1-2 punch and rolling guys through there, a wave of those guys to stay fresh. I've always had that approach with running backs." Now, under Trestman, during the past 2 seasons, Forte ranked 4th among all NFL running backs for carries, 555, and 1st for receptions, 176 receptions in the Trestman era. Forte, now this is something that is no way repeatable. Forte was on the field for a whopping 92% of the snaps last year. There has to be regression. That's just impossible to do again. Keep in mind, they picked up Jacquizz Rodgers in free agency. They drafted Langford. So we're already talking about the, quote, wave of guys that Fox speaks of. Plus, they still have Kadeem Carey and even Daniel Thomas, although I don't know if he's on the roster when all is said and done. Like Charles, I think Forte is going to start the season at 29. Forte turns 30 in December. Forte's yards per carry dipped below 4 for the first time since 2009. All of this shows a downward trend heading towards the inevitable running back wall that I'm saying he's going to hit. Once again, I'd rather be the first guy off the train than the last. What you got, Chicago boy?
Crickets, crickets,
Crickets?
crickets,
You agree with
crickets.
me?
Let's see.
Are
Yeah,
they
John
lighting
Fox
torches outside
uses
your apartment right now in Chicago?
I live across from a fire station, so they're putting those things out right away. If anybody's lighting torches, I'll tell you that for sure. There's nothing good that you can see in Forte's numbers and think that they're going to be repeatable. I mean, I think he goes back to like the 12 point per game back he was possibly before Trustman got to town. Trustman probably really helped, Forte's career. In the last 2 years, he scored double-digit touchdowns, in both years, and he had only ever done that since his rookie season. And these are total touchdowns. His rookie season, his numbers have pretty much all gone downhill except for when Forte got Trustman in town. His receiving numbers went through the roof that they're unlikely to do again. There's just nothing that excites me about Matt Forte, and people are just ranking him where he finished last year and thinking he's still going to be a top 10 back. And, I could still find a reason that he's going to finish number 10, but I'm not going to push my luck and bet on it. He's just not going to be a guy that's on my team, whether it's standard or PPR. I'm going to let somebody else draft the poison pill, much like the O'Meara Sheep contract that the Chicago Bulls got out of a few seasons back.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you a guy, I brought up two guys that are both going to be starting the season 29. Are you a believer in the running back, age 29, age 30 theory that they hit a wall?
All when I talk about Justin Forsett. But no, I don't think there's a specific age. I think every guy is different. I think the amount of career workload has a lot to do with it. I think just physicality as a runner, speed. Forte never had much speed, so I'm not really worried about him falling off the athletic cliff. He's always been more of a smart type of runner rather than the speedy Jamal Charles type. I haven't seen Jamal Charles lose a step, and even if he lost a step from the 4.2 guy he used to be, he's still a 4.4 guy. So that's what I think. It depends on each specific player differently. I don't think there's just one number that is the end-all be-all for running backs.
Well, I think you got
What
one
about you?
brewing.
You a big believer?
Well, I kind of am. Certainly, there's the Adrian Peterson that does it, and that can break that stereotype. But I think it's a combination of age and the amount of carries they had. And when they do get dinged up, although these guys, the longer they're in the league, they actually do know how to take care of their body better, with the amount of impact they're taking, the amount of hits they're taking, their body just doesn't rebound as well when you get older. And so I think it's a combination of things that starts to settle in with the amount of years they've been in the NFL, the amount of carries they've had, and the age. But yeah, I think it's true for more guys than it's you're going to find the Adrian Peterson guy that can break that trend. So yeah, I'm kind of leery of guys that are turning 29 and 30. There's a bunch of them this year. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Russell Wilson.
A little bit about my thoughts on Russell Wilson. So last season, he was, the 13th drafted quarterback. He ended up providing great value as he finished, number 3 in a pretty standard scoring system with only -2 for INTs and -2 for fumbles. There's a lot of stuff that says that is not repeatable. It's just not. He became, the 5th player to rush for over 800 yards at the QB position. I think last season's total were 849 yards and 6 TDs, and that was the 5th season in terms of yards from the QB position. According to that touchdown dependency chart, 37.1% of his points came from rushing, which was pretty much higher than any other quarterback last season, and is just an insane number to think about. His career average in rushing yards before that was 504. He had like an exact 50-yard split between his first and second year of 489 to 539. So let me tell you something. Here's the 5 QBs who have rushed for there are 6 instances, but 5 QBs to have done it. Let me tell you what they did the next season. Vic, he had that record season in 2006 of 1,039 yards, but unfortunately he didn't play the next year for reasons we will not talk about on this podcast. He had 902 in 2004, and the next year he had 597. Bobby Douglas, a Chicago Bear, a good friend of one of my friends at the radio station here, rushed for 968 yards in 1972, then 525 in 1973. Randall Cunningham rushed for 942 in 1990, was injured in the first game of 1991, and then in 1992 he rushed for 549 yards. Everybody's much maligned Washington Redskin. His rookie year, he surpassed 800 yards with 815 yards in 2012, and he got to 489 in 2013. Cam Newton, one of the best running quarterbacks of the generation, has never surpassed 741. So, but what all this is telling me is when a quarterback rushes for over 800 yards, he does not do it again the next season, and he does not get over 600. And we're talking about the greatest running quarterback of all time in Michael Vick here. And Russell Wilson cannot hand a candle to Michael Vick in a race. Trust me that. So, yeah, everybody wants to talk projections this time of year. And here's another interesting thing that comes when the guy did not lose a fumble last season, but he fumbled 11 times, according to NFL.com, and according to Pro Football Reference, it was 13. And he did not lose a single fumble last season, which is like ridiculously. The odds say that is never going to happen again. Statistically, that's an anomaly. So here's some things that scare me. He failed to throw for 200 yards 7 times last season, and one thing that he's talking about that scares the shit out of me is the guy took out an insurance policy on himself because he doesn't have a long-term deal. So you think he wants to be throwing his body out there on every play, risking his injury before a $100 million contract like Cam Newton got? No chance. I'll tell you my projections for him after you kind of tell me what you think about the Russell Wilson first there, Mo.
I'm with you. I do like Russell. I will say I like Russell Wilson more than Cam. I said Cam Newton had 3 games last year over 20 yards, or over 20 fantasy points. Russell Wilson had, I believe, 7. Plus, he had 3 games over 19. Russell Wilson, to me, is consistent. He's going to win you some weeks, and he's never going to lose you a week. You're going to be in it every time. Cam Newton is going to lose you some weeks and give you maybe 2, maybe 3 games that he's going to put you over the top, and those 2 or 3 games is the reason people like him and he finishes high. Cam, to me, is that aging runner that you're talking about that's not going to repeat. His body is breaking down. Russell, I still do think he avoids contact enough where he's going to be okay. I don't think his rushing numbers will repeat, but he does have Jimmy Graham, so I think his tossing TDs might come up a little bit. I like him more than Cam, I'll say that.
Okay, well that's fine. My projections for him account for all of those things. So I think he's going to complete 302 passes for 478 of his attempts, throw for 3,776 yards, which would be a new career high, throw 28 passing TDs, which would be a new career high. I think his interception numbers will come up a little bit with the more passing attempts. I think we'll throw 11 of those. Rushing, I see 575 yards and 4 touchdowns.
You're
Let's
talking about
see.
Russell?
He scored 6 rushing. Oh, yeah. I think Russell, he scored what? I think he's got 11 career rushing TDs. 6 of those came last season, 4 of the season before that, and then 1 his rookie season. So you just kind of think, this guy is not rushing for 6 TDs again. So I see him score, 4 next season. 4 rushing TDs, 575 yards, and then he's going to lose about 5 fumbles. So that's going to put him at 312.54 fantasy points. And if it was last year, that would be QB3 again. But I just think the position is going to go up as a whole. I think we're going to have a 2012 QB year where there's 6 or 7 guys up over 320 points in standard scoring.
Yeah,
what do you think about that
like
insurance policy, though?
Well, I don't think that shows any second guessing on his part or any doubt in his mind. I think that shows some intelligence. He's in the freaking NFL, and the longer you're in it, the more money you're going to make. And if you are out of it, yeah, you're going to lose a bunch. And might as well take out an insurance policy. Look at all these guys in college that take out these huge $1 million policies. If they don't make it to the NFL, why not take out a policy? I don't think that is an indicator of anything on his performance.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea that he's taking out a policy. I'm just saying that it's more of a, hey, I'm not going to throw my ass out on the line as much because if I'm going to get this $100 million deal. So I do not think he finishes in the top 5 this season. Do I think he's going to be terrible and fall off the face of the earth? No, but I just don't think you're going to get him at a value if you're drafting him in the 3rd or 4th round.
Right.
That's just me.
I agree. I don't think
I know.
a value there. And I tell you what, buddy, my insurance policy is tonight, Founders Centennial IPA. This is my beer of beers. As many of you remember, I used to work there at Founders in the tap room, pouring brews. In fact, that's where I met my wife. We were both bartenders there. But I'm an IPA guy. Centennial, it's 7.2 alcohol content, 65 IBUs. But the reason I really like it, it's hoppy like an IPA should be. But they're one of the few that use Centennial hops. That's where the name comes from. It is one of the most expensive, rarer hop, and it just gives it this really kind of citrusy finish that I think is fantastic. That's my insurance policy on most given days, Centennial IPA. And while I'm twisting your ears, just to put in a Pyro promo, you can follow me, Pyromaniac Mo, Pyromaniacmo, on Twitter, and Pyromaniac is at Pyromaniac. That's PYROMAN, the number 1 AC.
Yeah. You can follow me there. I don't have my own Twitter. I'm trying for somebody to convince me to get me my own Twitter because they just want to follow me. But I'll just stick and throwing stuff in the mud for Pyro until I decide that the time has elapsed to where I'm a big enough person to get my own.
You've been putting some good stuff out on Pyro. I noticed when we get into the Twitter conversation, you've been putting some good stuff out. So, yeah, I think you should jump in the Twitter sphere, buddy.
But then Pyro's going to lose a little bit. It's like I'm providing the goo there.
No, we're just growing the family. We're growing the goo.
Growing the goo. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm going to toss this one over to you. We're trying to keep, this is episode 1, ladies and gentlemen, so the goo will continue, but we're trying to keep Pyro light. Basically under an hour. We're about a little over an hour. Staggs and I have all kinds of spotlights coming at you. We've got a little bit of an and in this corner argument for you. And we even have some rookies that we're going to highlight. Staggs, you want to save that, or do you want to continue on?
Let's save here. But I've got to talk to you about Justin. That is like my guy of guys that I am throwing under the bus right now. everybody keeps raising him up their boards, and it's like, can you provide a good reason why? And everybody's best reason why is going to catch more passes under Mark Trestman. It's a fact. And I think that's great. Somebody's going to be catching more passes in a Trestman offense. I'm just not sure it's Justin Forsett. So what you think he's going to be a top 15 running back, Mo? So I'm going to let you lead this one off here.
Earlier, I said I was busting out the Karate Kid crane on you, and just fair warning, Forsett is one of my boys, and I have seen Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, so I can kind of bring the fire if we, meet by the monkey bars at 3 o'clock. I'm ready, is all I'm saying. I'm going to be ready. Justin Forsett.
All right. Are we talking about the new Karate Kid with like Jaden Smith? Are we talking about that like Ralph Macchio dude?
Well, Ralph Macchio is the Karate Kid with a capital T-H-E, but I've even seen the Chick and the Fresh Prince's kid. I've got the Karate Kid catalog DVD, man. Watching that junk. I think they should just qualify me as a black belt just for seeing as many Karate Kids as I have. I think that qualifies. I'm just going to walk into my black belt test, give them my DVD catalog, Cobra Kai, and then walk out of there. Drop the microphone and walk out. Anyway.
All right. Well, so are you saying you want the rebuttal then? If you're just going to walk.
Justin Forsett. Justin Forsett. Finishes top 15. Now let me tell you. Although you threw this argument sort of in my face earlier with Jamal Charles, and I said if you took out his top 5 runs, he's going to be below average. There were 19 running backs last season who recorded at least 100 carries and averaged more yards per carry than the average, which is the NFL average last year was 4.16. So there were only 19 backs better than the NFL average. They averaged better than 4.16 yards per carry. Which player could lose the most top number of carries and still be above the average yards per carry? Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Forsett. You could throw out his top 9, and he is still above the league average. He rushed for 235 times for 1,267 yards last year. He averaged 5.39 yards per carry. Pro Football Focus rated him as the 6th best back last year. They rated him as the 12th most elusive back last year. Forsett finished as the 8th best fantasy back last year with 185.4 total points. And he was 10th best in points per game with 12.6. Now, if you look at his game-by-game basis on his yards per carry, he averaged more than 4 yards per carry in his first 13 games. What does that spell? That spells consistency. He's not beefing up his numbers by having one outrageous game and then a couple stinkers. First 13 games, he did better than the league average. He did better than 4 yards per carry in his first 13. In those 13, he put up double-digit fantasy points 9 different times. I'm not always looking for a home run hitter, and I don't think Justin Forsett is a home run hitter, but you're going to plug him in, and he's never going to lose you. He's always going to win you. He's always going to be in the black. He's always going to give you the return. In the 6 seasons he's carried the ball in the NFL, he's been in the NFL 7 years. He didn't get a carry in his rookie season. So in the 6 years he's had carries, he averaged at least 5 yards per carry 4 years and at least 4 yards per carry 5 of the 6. Now, Buck Allen. Everyone's talking about Buck Allen, the rookie. I don't really think Buck Allen is going to have that much of an impact. In fact, RotoWire said they predicted 5 to 8 touches per game. Not even talking carries, and everyone knows they kind of drafted him for his catching ability. So we're only talking 5 to 8 touches being taken away. Taliaferro, heck, did that last year. They were having some running back by committee last year, so I don't think that really even factors in the 5.8 or 5 to 8 touches that Buck Allen might take away. I think Allen's going to be a change of pace back at best to begin this season. His ADP, 4 sets ADP, is 12th running back off the board. He's going at the end of the second, start of the third. And here's what you brought up that everyone is bringing up, right? Trestman Forte had a career year with Trestman. I don't see why anything else would happen. I'm not saying that Forsett is going to have a career year, but I'm saying Forsett is perfectly capable of having that amazing yards per carry, which he's had better than 5 yards per carry 4 of the 6 seasons he's been in the league. I still think he can do that, and he's going to increase his receiving game with Trestman there. He is only going to improve upon what we saw last year. And, man, give him the eye test. That dude runs hard, and he has been. I've been pulling for him for a long time to finally get some carries, and I've always seen him fill in some time in Seattle. He looked great. He just never had the opportunity, and now he does. I really like him. I'm sticking with him. Bring the ruckus, Chicago. Bring the ruckus, Chicago.
All right. Hey, Mo, how many career receiving touchdowns does Forsett have?
Career receiving touchdowns?
Oh, yeah, in his career.
Well, I can tell you in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, Justin Forsett.
Oh, yeah, 1.
Carry the 4, a rope and pulley. Let me get my abacus. Yes, 1.
Oh, that's impressive, right? And everybody's expecting him to be this, third down back, and he's been kicked out of the third down back role more times than I can count. Teams just do not want him back there on third down, and that's why they drafted a guy to replace him. One of the reasons is he's a terrible blocker. Another reason is he's a terrible receiver. Second lowest yards per catch number in the league last season. He almost averages more yards per carry than per reception, which is ridiculous. His yards per catch number on his career is 7. He's a 29-year-old running back, and he's got a career 71.6 catch rate, which is average for a running back. His yards per target number last season, 4.46, which is one of the absolute worst numbers in the league. Teams just have soured on him after a little while because he doesn't do certain things well. And the one thing he does well is run in a zone blocking scheme. Will they say they're going to have some zone blocking scheme principles this year, but it's still a Mark Trestman offense, which is a West Coast offense with some zone running schemes and some power run schemes. So you got to think there's going to be a little bit regression there. His 1,266 yards last season are 43% of his career total, and he's been in the league. How many seasons did you say? 7? He scored half of his touchdowns last season, half of his career touchdowns last season. And do you really think he's going to reach 8 touchdowns again from a 195-pound player when they have Lorenzo Talafiero there, who they used a lot to carry the rock in the goal line situations? So, Talafiero is going to get the goal line work. Buck Allen potentially splitting. We'll call it splitting. Third down work, and then, Forsett getting it on every other first and second, splitting it here and there with the other guys. And there's no way out of Kubiak's offense that this offensive line plays as well as they did last season. The season before that, remember Ray Rice kind of averaged 2.9 yards a carry. I just do not see Forsett becoming the player everyone wants him to be. And it's only because there's not that many good running backs out there, so you're throwing in your hat on Justin Forsett, expecting him to be the player that Steve Slayton was after his 1,000-yard season, or any of these guys who have been great in the Kubiak run offense.
You talk about Taliaferro being the red zone guy. He was a red zone guy last year. Forsett, red zone, Yeah, rushes he was 50%, and passing he was 6.5. I still see him getting at least 50% of the rushes in the red zone. Talaferro's not going to get more than that, and Buck Allen was drafted as a pass catcher. And although he's only had one pass catching touchdown, rushing wise, he only on the touchdown dependency chart he was only about 24% on TDs. And I'm not saying he's going to break the bank on receptions. He had 59 last year, but when Trestman first arrived,
59 targets.
59 targets. When Trestman first arrived in Chicago, I believe 4 sets. Targets went up 30, and then they just skyrocketed the next year. So even if we're talking 89 targets, that's going to be fantastic. He is going to improve on what he did last year. I just don't see that. What's different? Buck Allen and Mark Trestman. Trestman is going to have a far greater impact than Buck Allen is going to have a negative impact on Forset's numbers.
But you're not subtracting the Gary Kubiak part of the equation. Outside of Gary Kubiak's system, Forset's been nobody. Outside of his own blocking scheme,
he was never given the chance.
What do you have, like in? How many more chances do you need to be a third down back, which is what they want you to be at 195 pounds? And in Seattle, what he had, 260 carries or so, and pretty good numbers, but there's no way he's
in Seattle. He had like 160 some carries total.
115 in 2009, 118 in 2010.
Oh, in 2009, you're right.
And
you're right.
46 in 2011.
Yep.
So I just don't see that he's going to be able to replicate the season without Kubiak. Kubiak is a zone blocking guru, and he knows the guys that are going to do great in it. And he took this offensive line from being one of the worst units in the league in 2013 to the league in 2014. And last time I checked, the Chicago Bears offensive line, not that great.
Look at, he's had over 5 yards a carry. 2009,
Great.
2012, 2013, 2014. Almost every year, 4 of the 6, he's carried the ball. And if you extrapolate those numbers, so, 2009, 114 attempts. Well, last year he had 235. Both years he had 5.4. So if you give him over 200 carries, he's still going to be toting the rock, chances are, over 5 yards a carry. And now with Trestman's going to at least give him 200 yards a carry or 200 carries, and he's going to increase his receiving numbers.
I do not think he's going to get 200 carries. I just don't see him as a volume back. Nobody else has seen him as a volume back, and the only reason he wasn't Pierce epically terrible, and Talaferro was a rookie. So let's see. I'm not going to spend a second-round pick on Justin Forsett.
Yeah, I hear you. ADP-wise, second round, he's going end second, beginning of third. I'm hoping he kind of falls. That's something we didn't get to tonight. Maybe we'll get to in our next episode, but we can talk some draft strategy, zero RB or late round QB when we're going to be taking guys. But you're right. Second round is a bit pricey to pay for Forsett, if you ask me. I'm hoping he falls.
Here's the thing. Yeah, even if you want to go with zero running back strategy, you're not getting Justin Forsett.
Correct.
That's how high his ADP is.
Yeah,
and
I know.
That is insane.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's all I got.
I wouldn't mind. I would love having him as my. If I'm taking a running back in round 1 and a top tier wide receiver round 2, if Justin Forsett is there in the third, I'm happy. I'm loving it.
Go for have Lamar Miller.
Oh, all day on Forsett, if you ask me. All day on Forsett. Well,
All right,
Stags, I
we'll talk
think
about that one head to head.
I like it. I'm going to queue up some Karate Kid Part 2 with the drum thing, and I'm going to be ready for you. Sweep the leg, sweep the
All right,
leg.
well,
All right, man. Well, we've got some good stuff lined up for the next time. Some stuff we didn't get to, but like I said, this is episode 1. Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to try to bring you some more regimented segments. But next time, we're going to spotlight some rookies. We're going to continue this sort of end in this corner debates and do a lot of news and notes, player highlights, and I think bring you some ADP examinations. And then once we get the season rolling, like I said, we're going to be doing it on Fridays, try to give you some of the most up-to-date, accurate info so you can set your lineups by the time Sunday rolls around. So Stags, episode 1 is in the books, man. This was a pleasure.
as always.
All right, folks, Pyromaniacs. As usual, you can catch the boys 52 weeks a year doing the Pyro podcast. Staggs is he's like the James Brown of fantasy football. He's the hardest working man in fantasy football. You can see him there as well. I'm Pyromaniac Mo. Catch me on Twitter and on episode 2 of Pyro Light, and we will be featuring some of the boys, Dogmatica and D-Rex and Houdini, maybe even get Valverde over here, have them correlate with us on Pyro Light. Thank you for bearing with us, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you the next time around.